So this one is interesting. I'm glad I actually took my time coming to make this video because I ended up having a very enlightening discussion completely by accident with friends that ended up covering this topic, abortion, that I found pretty enlightening. It didn't tell me anything I didn't know, but it told me more about what people I find generally intelligent, how they feel about this kind of thing. So I was talking to a friend of mine who is a smart guy, but not every argument he ever makes is particularly smart. And the way he described abortion as something he wasn't personally comfortable with and something he would never choose for a child of his own, accidental or otherwise. But he gave me the same spiel of, well, I'm not a woman, I don't have ovaries, so why should I even discuss it? Which doesn't make any sense to me. Something doesn't have to directly affect you for you to be able to morally address the consequences it has for others or society as a whole or anything of the above. So leave it to who I consider the smartest guy in the room, besides me, and sometimes, maybe more so than me, to come up with something that I found particularly asinine. But completely by accident, another guy wanders into the Discord call, who is a guy who actually has a family and kids of his own. And he is one of these cases that oftentimes the liberals try to bring up as the hallmark case of this is generally who gets abortions, which, by the way, statistically is not true. They want to say most abortions are somebody who already has kids but can't afford another one that happens by accident. And this happens to be the case for the person I was talking to. He's a guy older than me, in mid 30s, or actually late 30s, and I know he's a vet. He's a guy I talk to and oftentimes bring up as an example in cases when I'm talking about all sorts of things. Great guy, but he was the case where they already had one kid, couldn't afford a second one, but now he actually has three kids. So he was the person with the one in the middle that they couldn't afford, was the one they had an abortion, and he didn't make that decision lightly, didn't enjoy making that decision, but he brought up the one kind of valid point that people sometimes have about this case morally, which is, it'd be the detriment to his whole family to have an unplanned kid. Yeah, all right. But then the fact remains when it comes to abortion that, say, if you shot and killed a pregnant woman, would you get charged with one homicide or two? That's the killer argument I bring up every time. A fetus is only a child if the mother wants it. And if the mother doesn't want it, well, then it's a parasite, which is something somebody else in the conversation brought up. It's unwanted organism. It's a clump of cells, something like that. People don't like addressing the idea that a baby that you can't look at is somehow not a baby. It's a smoke and mirrors thing that I really don't find morally moving in the slightest. But in doing research for this video, I found out that over the past few decades, no less than like 20 million abortions have happened in the United States alone. And it's actually a lot more than that. Some people I've encountered who are of a very racist persuasion say, well, I don't think that much of abortion because black people get most of them. That's not true. Black people get the most abortions, per demographic, okay, per capita or whatever. They are not who gets most of them. No, not at all. Some people, again, like I mentioned earlier, say that most people who get abortions are families, like, couples that just can't afford one more kid or something. Now, that's not a small amount of abortions. And of course, they brought up the classic rape baby case, incest baby case, and that does happen. Okay, that is something. However, it's less than like a tenth of a percent of abortions. It's probably less than a tenth of a percent of abortions. The fact remains that when reasons are given for any way that anybody's ever able to gather data on this, which is of course incomplete, it's just elective. It's just I don't want the baby. It's not I can't afford the baby. It's not that I can't carry the baby to term and give it up for adoption. It's not this is a rape baby. It's just don't want. And most liberals are actually honest about this. They're like, you can't make me carry something without my consent. Well, under that logic, it's okay for mothers to kill their children whenever they become a hassle. But no, all of a sudden, outside of the body, then it's a real child, but inside of the body, it's not. That doesn't make any sense scientifically. That doesn't make any sense morally. And this is coming from an atheist. Most people think that the only people who are pro life are religious. If anything, my lack of belief in souls and afterlife make me think more about the value of human life because everyone only gets one. And imagine getting, as the gamers like to joke and say, spawn killed. How fair is that? You don't even get to make it out of the fucking birth canal before you get ganked. And there's never going to be another that baby. Okay, that nobody gets a do-over on that. There's not some soul that is up in heaven and an angel says, "Oh, false alarm, you're not coming out this time." That killed that one. Yeah, they killed that vessel. You can't ride that one here. You'll take the next one up. That's not how this works. So I can't see any way that you can even try to morally justify this shit other than the effect it would have on the rest of a family, which is not most of who gets an abortion. Okay, it's it's unclear exactly how many that is, but it's less than 20%. It's probably less than 10% of abortion cases. And the next thing is, look, most people I know, actually the overwhelming majority of people I know, have never knocked up somebody by accident. I've known some people, I guess, as acquaintances that have managed to do this, and a few friends. And the thing is, contraception is not that expensive. And it's not just, oh, the pill. You can get a shot that's going to make you pretty much, infertile as a female for over a month. And as long as you're up to date on that shot, you don't have a baby. Okay? And I've met somebody in the past, I dated somebody in the past who was like, oh yeah, I have a baby. And I was told, oh, even if you're not up to date on your shots, it's like as long as you get the next shot within 6 weeks. Well, I show up a month later and I'm pregnant. It was like, well, you weren't up to date. And for everybody I've ever met who actually regularly uses condoms and doesn't just trust bitches when they say they're on the pill, I've never knocked somebody up, me included. Okay, I'm one of those people. I know lots of people like to say, oh, look at this absolute 4 out of 10, there's no way you get pussy. If you aim within your lane, there are very few people on this earth who are unfuckable, and if you're not getting laid, it's your fault. All right, I'm just saying. Now, you might not be able to nail a 10. You might not even be able to nail a 6. But you can nail somebody if you try hard enough and stay in your lane. Now, the thing is, that's generally who has these problems, is people who don't practice some kind of contraception, and pulling out does not count and never has. Now, I don't know how much more I can say on the topic than that, other than to hit you with that staggering statistic that that's 20 million dead. Now, I've known some people who are pragmatic to the point that they don't respect human life, and I'm one of those people who can lose respect for currently alive humans very, very easily. If you've watched me for any length of time, you know that I am the fastest to dehumanize my enemies in a hurry. However, there are some soft spots in this cold, dead heart, and they involve puppies and innocent children, okay? Children have not yet been to that point where you can dehumanize them because they're just fucking kids. And some kids are fucking assholes, but they're still just fucking kids, okay? But babies, like, nobody's okay with infanticide as long as it's out of the womb. But once it's in the womb, we all find ways to rationalize the consequences of this. And the best anybody can do is, oh yeah, even if I carry an unwanted child to term and give it up for adoption, I got to take maternity leave. Okay, all right, I understand you can't afford to be out of work for 6 weeks. All right, and I understand if your job doesn't give you maternity leave. Okay, still, that's a human life, and we can just make all these rationalizations about terminating it. And to me, I am capable of you can even look back on this channel. I have this video that's so, I don't agree with anymore, to the point where I wonder if I should delete it, even though like only probably 20 people watched it, where I'm so against the death penalty that I don't even think you should execute Dylan Roof, because I don't think executing criminals is the right thing to do. And I view life in prison as a harsher punishment than executing criminals. And I still some kind of feel that way. And I feel like we don't give the death penalty for the things we should anymore. But I'm no longer anti-death penalty. I really do, now that I'm like years later and having seen so much more human evil and shit, have a very different opinion of the value of a human life and when that value is forfeit. but I still can't get there with babies. You understand? So that's where I am with on this topic. All right. And this was less of a factual thing and more of a moral argument. One that I think is incredibly difficult to beat because the only thing you can do is rationalize away the sanctity of human life to even try. So I don't get where the pro-choice argument comes from unless you concede that you don't care. And some people don't care. Some people think, oh, it's something that can't feel pain. Okay, first of all, the amount of people who get abortions in the first trimester is not as many as you think. It's less than half. It's actually probably less than 20% of abortions. Most are second or third trimester. Baby's got a heartbeat within like 2 months. The baby can feel pain by the second trimester. And if you know anything about what an abortion is, it's essentially blenderizing the baby and vacuuming it out. It's fucked up. It's gross. It's sick. And, another fascinating little tidbit, I guess I'll add this just to pad the length a tiny bit, even though I never need to do that as long-winded as I am. A lot of people are only aware of who Project Veritas is because of the coverage they did years ago on what Planned Parenthood and abortion doctors were doing with fetuses, which is selling them for stem cell research, for that kind of shit, for for using the parts for science and shit, which they do. They lie and say they don't, but they've been caught out a million times in 4K. That's exactly what they do. And the same thing with child circumcision, by the way. If you think that your child's foreskin, that you've just mutilated them, and this is actually another thing that came up in that argument I was having with those same friends, but I guess we'll tack it on for time. They do use severed child's foreskins for cosmetics and science research and all this sick shit. And it's also a Jewish what do you call it, religious practice that has somehow made its way into acceptable acceptable medical something or other, to the point where doctors have been known to harass parents who declined the procedure for some bizarre reason. And the thing is, okay, yes, smegma's gross. Okay, yes, you don't want to have to teach your child how to clean something. Okay, yes, senior citizens who can't take care of themselves have frequent urinary tract infections or something related to this. But again, the same two friends tried to say you lose nothing by losing your foreskin. No, you lose many, many, many nerve endings. And there's no shortage of botched circumcisions that can render you unable to orgasm. It can cause severe infection. People have mutilated children permanently to the point where they can't even achieve erection with this procedure. Okay, and that's with medical doctors doing it, let alone what rabbis do. And if you know anything about how rabbis circumcise children, and it has something to do with using teeth instead of a knife or a scalpel or anything like that, it should disgust you very much. Okay, and children are defenseless when it comes to their parents. All right, and if you think people's parents can't influence their children in the same way that groomers influence their victims, you got another thing coming. The saying goes, when you see a trans child like under the age of 10, it's like seeing a vegetarian cat. You know who made that decision, and it wasn't the child and it wasn't the cat. All right, so I guess that's good enough I can do with this topic. I'm not 100% on what I'm doing next. Is probably the next thing I think of. It may have to do with a crime, because God, is that an easy one? But I don't want to necessarily preach to the choir, and I don't necessarily want to come at you where you've heard or know everything I'm going to say to you in a video, because that'd be wasting both our time. So I can't guarantee the next time I'm going to do one of these things. I know I keep crying to myself completely unprompted from you guys, my audience, who do not give me a hard time about being timely with these videos, but sometimes I have life stuff coming up, and sometimes I make a video and look at it and I'm completely unsatisfied with the quality of it and I shelve it. In fact, the next video you might see might not even be a video in the series, because I have made and shelved a number of videos on the buffalo shooter, which I worry about posting because I worry it'll fucking brick the shit out of this channel. But I will tell you, in all due disclosure, I've both seen the video and I have the entire 180-page manifesto, and I think I probably will relatively soon, It's not exactly timely anymore, but it was when I first started working on the video. I may make a video on that guy because that was the weirdest, shadiest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. And some more details have come out about that since, but for the most part, the video and the manifesto and the nature of who this kid is speak for itself. So before I go on too long, that's a topic, of course, for another video. So thanks for watching this one. And hope you guys are all doing good out there. I remind you, the economy is crashing imminently. Stockpile non-perishable food. Stop making luxury purchases. It's going to get really bad.